Hey there and welcome to our foyer. Well, this is the physical foyer. You're in the online foyer because you're about to join one of our online services which stream to a whole bunch of people that call themselves part of Northside from around Sydney, of course, but also from around the world this day and age. So welcome, hi, good to see you. If we haven't met, I'm Sam, I'm the Senior Minister here at Northside, and you may not know this if you've only ever joined us online, that we're actually one church in two locations. So we've got this building here in Crow's Nest in Sydney, and we've got another church who's about to start their service 10 o'clock up at Turramurra, and so you're joining in with everyone else that calls Northside home. Part of the way that you can call Northside home is this. I always say that you can belong before you believe and you believe before you behave. So what that means is it doesn't matter where you are in the spectrum of faith this morning. Maybe you are someone who is just checking out Christianity. Maybe you're someone who's just checking out the church. Maybe you're someone who's been hurt by the church. Maybe you're someone who's a recovering Christian and the whole reason why you're watching online is because it's safer without the people. Hey, we get it. And you know what? You wouldn't be alone. There's a whole bunch of people like you if you are in that space that call Northside home. At the other end of the spectrum, maybe you're surfing the web because you're looking for a new church home. And so in that way, it's great to be introduced. I hope you get a sense of who we are as a church. If you're looking for a new church home, we are relentlessly on about this. We're a church that's about engaging the disengaged with Jesus, whether that's someone who's checking out Christianity for the first time or someone who's walked with Jesus and looking to reconnect and still call themselves Christians. Either way, that's what we're on about as a church. So soon we're going to see our online service and you'll see me again live, obviously. And our service will have a couple of songs that we sing up front. Invite you to sing along at home, or if you're in a safe space to do that. Of course, I'll bring a message where our heart here at Northside is to communicate uncluttered Christianity. And so we hope that we would deliver Christianity in a new and a fresh way for you. I want to remind you though, before we get into the service, that we're so much more than an online experience. We are a church, and no one's in here at the moment because church is about to start. But we are an online church and we are real pastors beyond the screen there. So if you'd like to get in touch with us, our website is a great place to start at northsidechurch.org.au, and call the office. I'd love to chat with you. I'd love to connect with you, as would many of our ministry team. We've got youth ministries and kids ministries. We've got ministries for divorcees, singles, wherever your stage of life is at. There's a place for you here, and whether it's physical or online, we'd love you to connect you into our community if there's a way to do that. So be sure to be in touch, particularly and most importantly, if you've got a pastoral care need. If there's any way that we can help you practically or prayerfully, be sure to keep in touch. So anyway, looking at the time, it's probably not long until we're about to start. I just wanted to say hi and let you know that there's real people behind all of this two-dimensional service. And of course, church is always best experienced in 3D. Hope you get a good sense of it this morning. And I hope that there's a chance for us to connect beyond the screen. Catch you then.
Well, good morning and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year.
We should have those streamer things. We didn't bring them.
We didn't bring them.
Anyway, imagine poppers. Happy New Year. Welcome to Northside. I'm Sam. This is Kristen.
Good morning. And maybe you are just waking up and it's the first moments that you've seen of 2023, or maybe you stayed up late and watched the fireworks last night. Whatever you did last night, we hope that you had a great celebration of saying goodbye to 2022 and saying hello to 2023.
You said that right.
I did say
You're going to get
right.
that wrong a lot of times this year, I reckon.
I'm sure I am.
Yeah.
I keep wanting to say 2032.
Absolutely.
But it's 2023.
It's a different service today.
It is a different service today. We are one of the themes that we talked a lot about last year. I'm going to get that confused. It's the first day, so I'm allowed to. One of the themes that we talked about a lot last year was rest. And so these next 2 weeks, we are as a church having a bit of a rest. We're letting our volunteers have a well-deserved break and holiday and rest. But we as a church are also practicing that. And so we aren't having any in-person services. The 1st and the 8th, we'll be back on the week of the 16th or the 15th. But so we're having a rest, but we, of course, are here here online with you guys this morning and glad that we can be part of a community. Hey, if you are wanting to contribute in the chat this morning, why don't you type in and let us know what you did last night to celebrate New Year's?
Yep.
And maybe what you're looking forward to in
Maybe
the
we can
first
have a
week.
prize for the person who managed to watch the fireworks closest to the Harbour Bridge.
Oh, yes.
That'd be a good one. Let us know where you want a boat, on a rooftop, someone's house. Write in the comments. Let us know where you are.
Where you were. Hopefully
Yeah.
you're not still there.
Yeah, hopefully you're not still. Could be.
Could be.
Online church,
Who knows?
Hey, our vision as a church, if you kind of haven't worked it out or you're watching for the first time, our vision as a church is to be the sort of place for people who kind of don't like church. The way we describe it in our vision is that we want to engage the disengaged with Jesus. And we're kind of different from a lot of different churches. We try not to take ourselves too seriously. And we try to be the sort of place that if church is either not for you or maybe you've been hurt or burnt by the church and you're giving it one last shot, then you're going to find a place that's relevant and also full of grace when you come back into this space. And so I guess it's kind of like a bit of a stitch up when the pastors always talk like that. So that's why this morning, one of our favourite stories, and we did this all last year, one of our favourite stories from a Northsider was someone who literally Googled in church for people that don't like church. Why don't we listen to Gabe's story now?
Hi, I'm Gabriel. I'm 33 today. I live on the North Shore. For me, life began in Sydney, August 17, 1995. Born in Hong Kong originally, and when we first arrived, we lived in St. Leonard's, not far from here, in Herbert Street, and we were there for about 7 months, and then family moved to Pymble, and we've been there ever since. And I did uni at Macquarie University. I graduated in 2012 with degrees in finance and accounting. My mother language is Cantonese. Yep, so we speak that at home. Showing apartments to potential buyers and tenants. Yeah, I remembered Googling church for people that don't like church. I grew up in a Christian home. I don't think I ever really enjoyed church growing up. I believe in God. Growing up, I went to church with the family, but it was probably more just because I was dragged along, a lot more so than wanting to go myself. I think basically I belong in that category where people don't necessarily dislike God or the Bible. They just don't really like or enjoy church, and I just fit into one of those. It was probably before the lockdown, and I Googled it, and then I saw the first one. The topic was accepting people as they are. And I remember watching the sermon, and then when it finished, I just thought, wow, that's not what you would expect from church nowadays. There was also a thought in my mind, I hope he doesn't get sacked. Because the last time I heard such a radical sermon, it was actually the pastor's last sermon, and he was having a go at the church leadership or elders, whatever you call it. I just kept watching it on and off during the lockdown because, after that first one that I saw, I just felt there was something more. I love hearing a message that, I can understand, and I don't need to have a PhD in theology to know what's going on. I think since coming here, I've finally found a church community that I feel I can connect with and people I can relate to. I watch reruns of Sam.
Oh, you do?
Just for just when I need a bit of a pick me up.
Wait, so you
Yeah, during the
rewatch
week.
the
Yeah,
sermons?
yeah. Or if I, didn't really understand the Sunday message, I want a bit of a revision. Yeah, I've been coming to Super Connect since last November or December. I just love being a fly on the wall, pretty much, listening to all the people talk. So I love observing, getting the lay of the land, so to speak. Don't give up, guys. There's hope. I'm a very good example. I never liked or enjoyed church growing up. I always felt I never fitted in. I guess for the first time in my life since coming to Northside, I may have, found my home, so to speak.
I always love hearing that story from Gabe. And if you don't know Gabe, he is with us every single Sunday, isn't he?
He's a
setting
very-
up, and
yes.
he has been one of my sources of joy and encouragement ever since we came back from
Incredibly faithful,
online
incredibly
stuff. Yeah.
kind and welcoming. Yeah.
It's great. Hey, we didn't let you know we're doing things a little bit differently this morning. I said it was going to be a good way to get a sense of who Northside is. Basically, what we've done is we've plugged all of our online stuff into the supercomputer. We've crunched the numbers. We've surveyed people. We've thrown it out there. And we've tried to get a sense of some of the most impacting messages that you have reflected to us over 2022. And one of those was the one that you did on Sabbath.
Yeah.
I think it's because it involved a pot plant. Maybe that's why it was
yes.
memorable. But why Sabbath, and why that message for you?
I think for the last couple of years, I think that we have worked, I feel like a lot of us have been very good at keeping on going and wondered why we've always felt very tired, or have said throwaway lines such as, I need a holiday from my holiday, or I just need to get to the weekend, and then after the weekend we say I just need to get back to work to have a rest. And so I think it was really impactful for me, because I think that I have desired to be a person that is enjoying life and in being thriving in life, and felt really impacted when I learnt more and more about Sabbath and the importance and the vitalness of it, and the gift that God has given to us in this beautiful thing called Sabbath, in the rhythm of Sabbath. And so, that's why.
Oh, absolutely. Well, let's take a look at some of the best parts, a little snippet from that message. Let's take a look now.
So the first Hebrew word is Shabbat, which means to cease and to stop working. The next one, anyone else want to have a go at that one? Nuaha, if we just say it really fast, Nuaha, which means to dwell. And that is where the definition of Sabbath that we know it as comes from, is those two Hebrew words. Throughout the Bible, it's kind of intertwined, and which word that they use to describe Sabbath. So clearly it just means to stop working, both paid and unpaid work. So for those of us, because I remember when I was not doing paid work for a season, when I was bringing up our small children, anytime someone talked about work, I was like, well, I'm out because I don't get paid to do my work. But God doesn't just talk about paid work, he talks also about the unpaid work, which is like the household stuff, the volunteering, all of those things as well. To stop working, both paid and unwork, and to rest and dwell. So it's a rhythm of rest and dwelling with God to tend to our souls. Now, before we move on, I already know that you're probably having a couple of thoughts in your head already, and I just want to address them before we move on. And number one is that some of you are like, Kristen, I already do this. I've already got a great rhythm in place. I'm very good at having the Sabbath. Thank you very much. I'm just going to enjoy my Sabbath right now and shut my eyes and dwell with the Lord. Maybe we could learn something new this morning. Maybe you could add something different to your Sabbath if you do it really well. Or maybe you could be encouraged to inspire someone else to do it well. Or number two is maybe you're having that silent chuckle that I had when someone brought up Sabbath to me. Had a little bit of a laugh going, such a great idea,
But don't you know? Don't you know what my life's like? Don't you know that I've got 2 small or 3 small or 1 small child that I'm trying to bring up? Don't you know that I have teenagers who take up so much of my mental and emotional capacity? Don't you know that I've just started a new business or a new job and it's taking up all of my time? And if I'm not working in it, then nothing has happened to the business. Or don't you know that I'm an entrepreneur? And so there is no one else. The buck doesn't stop with anyone else. It stops with me. If I'm not working in my business, it's not a business, it's not happening. Or maybe you're actually retired and you're saying to yourself, I have never been more busy than what I am right now. And you don't actually know how you fitted work into your life because retirement is so busy. Or maybe you're looking after aging parents, or maybe you're looking after siblings that just need that extra support and you're like, I'm at capacity. Thank you so much, Kristen, but there is no way that I can add this into my life right now. And we will get to that. And I just want to keep you listening so that God can speak to you and maybe add something new into your soul. Or maybe you're thinking, oh great, she just wants to talk about a religious practice that I have to do and I must do. And can I tell you this morning that I hope that as we journey through this together, that we may see that it is not a religious tradition and practice that we must do, but it is something far beautiful and something more creative and something more wonderful for us so that we aren't like this and that we can flourish and that we can thrive.
Well, at church, we love to do a series of sermons over like a couple of weeks. And one of the series that we know has meant not only a lot to you guys, but we've got a lot of feedback from was the Roadblock series, which if you are new to the faith and you've got big questions about the faith, then can I encourage you to go back on our YouTube channel and have a look at that series. But Sam, what was like the reason behind the Roadblock series?
I think you've got friends and I've got friends, or maybe you. A lot of people have big questions of the faith. If God is so good, what do bad things happen to people? What do I do with my doubts? These sorts of big questions that stop them from having faith or even walking into a church. And so we want to create a series that if that is you, we could try to answer those questions as honestly and openly as we can, and theologically as well, give you an understanding of the Bible. But more importantly, if you're a member of the Northside family, it's a great series to flick to your friends and say, hey, take a look at this playlist on our YouTube channel, or take a look at this particular message, particularly if that question popped up in conversation with people. So I think it was chatting to people, doubts seem to be the theme that popped up the most. And so here's just a little reflection from my message on doubts. Let's take a look now.
Church discipleship thing is just a pyramid marketing scheme for spiritual people, right? That's how I often think when I get into doubts. Whenever I get in that moment, I preach to myself. You know that I preach to myself. You know I've told you that when I wake up in the morning, I have to preach to myself instead of listening to myself. Because when I listen to myself, I mostly start the day with bad news. And so I preach to myself, and I preach to myself, something happened, something happened, something happened, something happened. Because my faith, when it comes to my doubts, is not based on the Bible. And I know there are some people in here who go, oh my goodness, you can't say that. To which I would say to you that Christianity grew and exploded more rapidly in the first 300 years before we had the Bible than it did in the 1700 years since. That the message of Christianity was not believe the Bible. The message of Christianity was we hung out with a guy who was alive, we watched him die, and he's alive again. And so I preached that to myself. Something happened, something happened, something happened, something happened in all of this. And then I ask a question like Peter asked himself, but it's a different kind of version. And it's a question I want to ask you this morning, particularly if you're finding that doubts are a roadblock to the faith. Let's put it this way. If someone had the ability to predict their own death and then pull it off, don't you think we should just listen to what he has to say? And that guy's not going to toss you out if you've got doubts. That guy's going to meet you with grace. That guy doesn't need you to turn your life around. That guy doesn't need you to behave. But if there was a guy in history where something happened, had the ability to pull off his own death, predict his own death and pull it off, shouldn't we just listen to what he says? Bring your doubts. If he doubted, you can doubt too. And if you're searching, that's good news for you this morning, because Jesus is not going to toss you out. So just bring your doubts and follow him anyway. And if you're of the faith this morning, particularly if you're in that space where it's hard and it's difficult and you're thinking this is just about it, or I'm giving it one last go, or I'm out of here, will you just rest in your restlessness, knowing that he doubted. He doubted when everyone left him in that garden. And he moved forward and he followed anyway.
Well, another highlight, I think, for us as a church this year was we had this really great discussion midway through when we were talking about vision, about how we as a church want to be known what we are for. And we think for so long the church, the Big C church, not just our church, has been known what we are against. But we want to be a church that is known what we are for. And we are for the Lower North Shore. We are for the Upper North Shore. We are for the North Shore. And so we shared a little bit about what that means for us as a church. And we're really excited to be able to share a little bit of a glimpse with you right now about what it means for us as a church to be for the North Shore.
In other words, God doesn't discriminate with you and I as Christians on the basis of our behavior when we first became a Christian. So who are we to do that to anyone else? And more simply, we are for people because God is for people. John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world," not the world, asterisk, fine print down the bottom, the world, excluding people of certain races, demographics, sexualities, and other opinions, political or thereof, right? Last time I checked, all was all. And part of our dynamic as a church, because I know that can rub some of us up the wrong way, including me, hey, welcome to church. That's part of what church is about coming together with people who are distinctly different from you. And by the power of the Holy Spirit, humbling our hearts with verses like this to say there is no distinction that God made toward me that brought me into his love and his grace. And therefore, how do I apply that to someone who totally irks me in this place? Welcome to church. We're for people because God was for people. And of course, don't get me wrong, there's ways in which, when you've heard us preach before, it's a nuanced process of living with each other and stewarding each other and challenging each other and judging each other internally. That's fine when you get into this tight-knit basis of relationship. I'm not saying that we're a church free of any type of moral compass in what we do, but we're a church who has the front door absolutely open because we understood that if God was a piano bar player singer from New York, he would write lyrics like this: "Don't go changing, trying to please me. You've never let me down before. And don't imagine that you're too familiar and I don't see you anymore." Billy Joel understood the gospel. Why is it that we spend so much effort as Christians trying to get people trying to change in order to please God? And he says, don't do that. Come as you are. Be as you are. And so let's come back to the soccer parents and the brunches and the rest of it. We want to close the gap between them and what we have here in this space. And part of the way that we want to do it is to say we don't want to make it difficult for people who are wanting to come to God. We don't want to make it difficult for your family and for your friends and for people from work that you know. And I think we do this reasonably well, and I mean this in a non-prideful way, but one of the ways that I know that we do this, World Church, is I've had people that have brought friends along to this church who have left us to go to other churches, which is fine, but they've brought their friends back here, and I said, what are you doing back here? And they said, I'm not bringing my friend to my church. I'm bringing him to this church. And that is not because we're better than the other church. It's because God has given this church, and as someone who's been a teenager in this church, and someone who's seen the DNA of this church, that if you turned up to this church in its early days, people thought you'd backslidden. This is a church that's had a DNA that says we will always be for people, even if it means a few tut-tuts and a raised eyebrows from people outside the church. Are you guys cool with that?
One of the blessings here at Northside is we've got a bunch of great communicators. There's one communicator that we don't see as much of on the online stream because he's always faithfully up there each week at our Turramurra campus, about 20 minutes north But this guy has a burning passion to make Jesus known to people. And I know one message that he had that stood out for me and for us was Barry's message on what does Jesus say about love. Let's hear from Barry Tramaki, our Turramurra campus pastor now.
Jesus goes on in Luke 14, he says this, suppose one of you wants to build a tower, or so suppose one of you wants to build a house. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? For if you lay the foundation and you're not able to finish it, everyone who sees it will ridicule you, saying, this person began to build, they weren't able to finish. Or suppose a king, this is very relevant in our society today, or suppose a king is about to go to war against another king. Won't he first sit down and consider whether he is able with 10,000 men to oppose the one coming against him with 20,000? If he is not able, he will send a delegation while the other is still a long way off and will ask for terms of peace. What is Jesus saying here? Jesus is saying when it comes to loving God with all you've got, we need to consider the cost. We need to do a cost-benefit analysis. We need to consider the risks. We need to actually think about whether we can afford to follow Jesus. But you know what else Jesus is saying? You also need to consider whether you can afford not to follow Jesus. And when you look at that, you go, follow Jesus. The rewards are eternal. The benefits far outweigh the costs. In Luke 14:33, Jesus says, in the same way, those of you who do not give up everything you have can't be my disciples. So here's the thing, the last point of this little passage about loving God is this. Real followers of Jesus love Jesus more than their possessions, giving up everything they have. And what that means is this, that everything that you earn and everything that you own isn't yours. Everything that you earn and everything you own is not yours. It's God's. The psalm says, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. In Deuteronomy, it says that God is the one who actually gives us the wisdom and the knowledge and the skill to work with our hands to actually earn a living, so that all that we earn and all that we own isn't ours, it's God's. And what it means to love God with everything is to surrender our sense of ownership and recognise that we are simply stewards of what God has entrusted to us. So here's what it means to love God. Put aside our personal agendas for Jesus' agenda. Lay down our desires for his dreams. Put aside our possessions for his purposes. That's what it means to be a follower of Jesus.
Well, another one of our series that we did this year, but is actually kind of not new for us as a church. It wasn't something that we started just in 2022, but it's something that you have talked about for a long time and is really part of the culture here. And that was the series about substitutes. And what was like the main reason why you are so passionate about talking about substitutes?
I think because it undergirds all of our Christianity. We'll see from just this snippet that we'll have in the message that we're all going to serve somebody. And I think these days when we come to realise that whether you're a Christian or a non-Christian, that's at the heart of often what drives us. That is the key to unlocking freedom and liberty in our faith and even finding faith. Let's take a look now.
It's not like we walk around saying, I love my career, I love my career, I love my career, I love my career. It's not like we walk around saying, I love my children's future success, I love my children's future success, I love my children's future success. It's not like we walk around saying, I love my bank account, I love my bank account, I love my... It's not like we walk around saying, I love the appreciation in my property, particularly given I live in Sydney, particularly I given I live in... Right? The truth of what we're going to talk about over the next few weeks, if you're anything like me, is that there are things in my life that my heart clings to like a 5-year-old and a 5-cent coin. There are things that my heart just seems to instinctively tether itself to. And the principle is this, that we, for whatever reason, end up serving the things that gain the affections of our hearts. Have you noticed this? I know it's mysterious and the Bible will speak into this, but I'm sure that you've sensed this, that we serve the things which gain the attention of our hearts. Now, this is not a Christian thing, by the way, so if you're watching in and you're thinking, oh, here he goes into Christian gobbledygook, it's not a Christian thing, this is a thing. This is just an everyone thing. In fact, so much of the passage that we'll look at this morning describes the dynamic that is happening around, particularly for non-Christians, with this dynamic. This is just a thing. Bob Dylan understood this. The writer, for anyone under the age of 30, he was a guitar player, and he said, you may be an ambassador to England or France, you may like to gamble, you might like to dance, you may be the heavyweight champion of the world, you may be a socialite with a long string of pearls, but you're going to have to serve somebody. Yes, indeed, you're going to have to serve somebody. Well, it may be the devil or it may be the Lord, but you're going to serve somebody. That's the reality. We all worship someone or something. And the thing is that when we worship these things, more often than not, we're blind. We don't sense what it is that we're actually truly worshiping. All of us move into this place and we say, I worship Jesus, which is good. That's the Sunday school answer, right? But the truth is, and the reality when I look out into this congregation and as you sit there watching in, that there are things in your heart and my heart that we are serving that have become ultimate things in our lives and we don't even know it.
So just prepare for what God's going to continue to do here this morning. Spirit sound, rushing wind, fire of God, fall within. Holy Ghost, breathe on us, we pray. As we repent, turn from sin, revival ember, smoldering, breath of God, fan us into flame. We need a fresh wind, presence of heaven, pour your spirit out, pour your spirit out. You've applied our grace, sons and daughters sing. We can hear the wind blowing, blowing. We need a fresh wind, fragrance of heaven. Pour your spirit out, and pour your spirit out. Holy anointing, the power of your presence, pour your spirit out, and pour your spirit out. Yes, Lord. Lord, that's our prayer this morning, Father. God, that you just peer into our hearts, oh Father, peer into our spirits, and speak to us, oh Father, through your word, through the songs, oh Father, through communion, through fellowship, Lord. Lord, we give you the praise this morning. We give you all the honor that you deserve. In Jesus' name we pray.
Well, what a great way to start the new year, by being reminded about what we have learnt this year, or maybe something has sparked an interest for you and you want to go back and have a look at that full sermon. We encourage you to do that. But what a great way to start the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And probably that opportunity for me to do a shameless plug on our YouTube channel and to say hit subscribe. I always hate saying that because I sound like an influencer. But seriously, about only 1/3 of the audience that we have on our YouTube channel are actually subscribed. And if you hit that subscribe button, you'll keep posted with more messages and more material that we'll have coming out this year that are kind of non-sermon related stuff. Most importantly, church, use our YouTube channel as a great resource for your friends, particularly that Roadblock series, How to Grow Your Faith. We'll continually update our YouTube channel in order to have different playlists that are going to help grow you and your friends in their faith. So see it as a tool to use. Send someone an invite link. Really easy to do. But hopefully this morning has given you an idea of how you could use that.
Yes.
But particularly if you're a guest with us, and if you're in Sydney in particular, we'd love to meet you. We're gathering back again on the 15th of this month, different ways to connect. In the meantime, we hope this gave you a good sense of who we are as a church.
And maybe before we go, if there was maybe a sermon that stood out to you that we didn't highlight, maybe write in maybe what was the sermon that stood out to you the most in 2022.
Yep. Great idea.
And then we can use them next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyways, we'll see you this time next week, and also continue enjoying your holidays, or if you're back to work, may you do it with a spring in your step. We've got some great stuff coming up next week that we're looking forward to sharing with you to set you up for 2023. See you then.